And we are live. Hello and welcome to the We All Follow podcast. My name is Matt Fox and I am your host. You can find me on X at Big Match Pro AFC. Today on the podcast, we have the man whose Rolodex makes Money Penny blush, Nigel Bratton. Welcome back, Nigel.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You can find him at Nigel B Golf on X. Along with him, we have the man whose thoughts on prospects once got lost in Americana, Ben Mattinson. Welcome back, Ben.
Thanks for having me on.
All right. And finally, we have the man who sings, I'll take you there like nobody else can, Dabo. Welcome back, Dabo.
Good evening, but do not ask for a rendition live on a podcast because everyone will leave within the first couple of minutes. So, hello.
All right. And we're back to talk about Euro 2024, which will be taking place in Germany. You guys saw the Scotland Germany preview, and now we're going to talk about the rest of the games in Matchday 1. So we're looking forward to some really exciting games. The first match day, we have Saturday and Sunday of Matchday 1. We have Hungary, Switzerland. We have Spain, Croatia, Italy, Albania. And then on Sunday, we have Poland, Netherlands, Slovenia, Denmark, and Serbia, England. So obviously, first off, we have the holders, Italy playing Albania on the third slot in the Saturday games. We have England's first game, and we have Sesko off the back of his reported extension staying at Leipzig for another year. So, Nigel, of those games, which stands out to you? Which one are you most looking forward to?
I'm obviously looking forward to Serbia versus England. It's going to be a nice, lovely evening in France when I'm in France on that Sunday watching that. Saturday, the middle game on Saturday, the 5 o'clock UK, 6 o'clock Central European time game, Spain versus Croatia. I think it's massive. We in our first episode podcast, we spoke about it was a Euros preview, and I said that there was two groups of death. One of them being Group D, which had got France, Austria, Poland, and Netherlands, and the other one being Group B, Spain, Croatia, Italy, and Albania. Albania are no pushovers, but we said this, when three teams could possibly go through from a group, you don't want to lose your first game. If you draw, it's not the end, but if you can win, you're effectively through. So this is two of the favourites for that group. So I'd be hard pushed to split Spain, Croatia, and Italy. This is two of the favourites going head to head. I mean, this is straight up first full day of the tournament, third actual game in the competition. It's Spain versus Croatia. I'm sure that in the FIFA rankings, if you looked at that, that's two top 16, top 20 teams going head to head straight up. I mean, I think that could be an absolute belter. Two teams who love to play football. Two teams who don't score many goals. So it's going to be tiki-taka versus tiki-taka, and it could end up being 1-0.
You actually have Spain is 8th and Croatia is 10th right now.
Well, there we go. I actually think I think it'll be a close game, but it's going to be two teams who don't want to lose. And if you do lose, you're so on the back foot. Especially, bearing in mind, you've got to play Italy as well. And then you've got the wild card in Albania. I don't think Albania will lose all three games. So someone's going to lose points to Albania at some point. So yeah, Spain, Croatia for me, it's hands down the biggest game of the weekend in terms of quality. England versus Serbia, that's going to be an event, and it's Kane versus what's his name, Stranja. Is it Pavlovic who plays at the back? Isn't it? Stranja Pavlovic who plays Serbia. Yeah. And Mitrovic versus John Stones. Could be Dusan Blaovic. But there's some great players on show for Serbia, England. I think there's more people than what they'll realise in terms of quality in that game, especially on the Serbian side. I think people might underestimate them. I think they're a better team than what people will give them credit for. So yeah, it'd be good.
On that note, Ben, what key players are you looking out for in this Saturday Sunday of match day one?
Yeah, firstly, Yamal at Spain for Spain, because it's ridiculous that we're talking about a 16-year-old who's literally starting for Spain, is probably their most deadly attacker. Obviously, they've got other guys like Olmo and Nico Williams, even Morata up top. Is he's got a weird reputation in England because it wasn't the best, but he's had a good year as well. So. But Yamal, like he's just got that star quality, and if he has a good tournament, like we could be talking about, like him really pushing to. Like, a lot of people are saying, is he already the best right winger in the world? I'm like a bit too much, but in terms of ability, he's right up there, which is crazy for someone of his age. But if he can really take on all that responsibility, it'll be interesting. One that I noticed because there's someone I've mentioned a lot to you guys before that got in the Croatia team, Martin Baturina at Zagreb. I was surprised to see him in the team, but I'm interested to see what sort. They've got a very old team now that have been together for a long time, and he's one of the next guys coming through. So it'd be interesting to see how much he plays because he fits the mold really well, and if he plays and Croatia, they've got a good, stable environment there of guys that are used to playing with each other. So if you bring him in, and other younger guys like Lovramaya and obviously Guardiola, guys like this as well, he could really make a bit of a statement as well. And then for Serbia, there's a couple for England to look out for. What their involvement will be, I'm not sure, because the Serbian manager, there's Ivan Ilic, who's weirdly they keep playing him as like a left wing back because they don't have any left wing backs, or they'll put him in midfield as well, which obviously is his main role. And Lazar Samidzic as well. Both of them two are really could be at any of the top teams. But in general, Nigel mentioned about Albania as well, and their group. I think, funny enough, with them against Italy is probably the one where you'd start to fancy them because they've got in their squad they've got 9 or 10 that actually play in Italy right now, and they tend to have a lot always historically because of where they're located. So that might be a bit of a interesting game there because they're not. There's no flashy names at all, but they're physical. They know how to. They can be tough to beat at times. So it probably might end up being one of the lowest scoring groups. That those 4 teams, but it's also quite unpredictable because of that. But Italy under Spalletti, they're going to want to play a bit more. So it might be interesting to see how that happens because they've got a lot of defenders that like to play with the ball and bomb up. So, against certain teams like Spain, you can see them getting exposed on the counter. So it'll be interesting as well.
And in terms of narratives, Dabo, I don't want to necessarily get you on a certain track, but in the last pod when we did the Germany Scotland preview, I had a bit of a rant about Saka and the way that he's been treated in the media. So I think there's that narrative that's going to be out there. I think you have the narrative of Italy being the holders. Can they repeat? I'm not sure that's been done in a long time. You have recent winners, Spain, of course, as well, with a totally different squad. What narratives stand out for you in this set of matches?
Yeah, for me, I think that it's kind of a bit of a mix of kind of what Nigel and Ben have already said in terms of the matchups that we've got, the kind of jeopardy in the groups and the players that can actually make a difference in those games. Obviously, with England, I think people underestimate England's group, and there's a narrative almost that people think that England are just going to get almost a free pass. It seems to be something that we like to do over here in England for some reason. We always just like to think, yeah, we're England, we're going to get through. And recently, this team, like the team that we've got, has done that. But in terms of the quality in the group, Slovenia, Denmark, and Serbia, all 3 of them are going to give you a tough game. And like Nigel said, if you drop points in that first game, or if you drop points in the second game, then there's a real risk that then the pressure really kind of compounds on that second and third game in order to qualify. So it's kind of, can this England team, where there's a lot of experience in it, but there's also a lot of youth. I know that some of this youth has experience in a way, but your Jude Bellingham's, etc. I know he's been to the World Cup, and Bukayo Saka, it's still his third international tournament. And these are parts where now they're at a level where they're expected to hit the ground running and perform for England. And I know that traditionally they have in the past, but it's an area where they need to hit the ground running. And then you've got people coming through, like if people like Kobbie Mainoo and Adam Wharton and Cole Palmer get a bit more of a run in than you'd expect them to have, then how are they going to perform? And the same goes for your other teams, is how are they actually how they're going to start performing, how are they going to hit the ground running, how are the players going to impact the games. So yeah, I think there's a lot of narratives, and then obviously we've spoken a lot about the kind of Saka incidents that we've had recently in terms of how the media portray different players, and it'll be interesting to see kind of the different results that England get, if it's a win, loss, or a draw, kind of what players they're targeting, what players they're praising in those performances. If it's a win, are you praising your Fodens, who doesn't seem to get a lot of stick from the media, and at the same time, if you're losing, are you kind of then kind of bundling it on Saka? And you could say the same for your other clubs where they have those young players like Yamal for Spain. Are they going to support him if Spain do horrendously or he has a bad performance, or are they just going to completely kind of berate him and kind of put him down like the media love to do? So there's a lot of interesting narratives, but I think the main thing is teams have just got to start well, players have got to stand out. And then kind of as we get through the first match day or the second match day, then you'll kind of see those in-tournament narratives that we can then start to discuss after that.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. We'll see how the first round of games go. Of course, please join us in the We All Follow Discord. The link is here and in the description. And we're going to continue to have these throughout the tournaments, throughout the summer, and heading back into the season. So join us, have a chat, and get to know us a little bit better. Next up, we have the Monday and Tuesday of Matchday 1. So we have Romania, Ukraine, Belgium, Slovakia, Austria, France, Turkey, Georgia, and Portugal, Czechia. And we have the golden generation of Belgium, who might be on their last tournament, depending on who you ask. Again, without Courtois, which we mentioned in the group breakdown in the last one. We have France coming back off of the finals of the World Cup where they lost, and their next international tournament, seeing where that team and that squad can go. And then we have potentially Ronaldo's last dance on the international stage for Portugal. So let's bring it back to you, Dabo. What games are you looking forward to in this set of matches?
Honestly, all of them, to be honest. But if you kind of ask me the ones that I'm most excited for, it's going to be the ones with your big hitters, because you want to see how they kind of perform. So Belgium, I know that it was spoken about in the kind of preview pod. They've got a good mix of a decent amount of youth, but then some quality players that have been there and kind of seen it. And that golden generation, like you spoke about, that didn't really get it right. And this is almost not, I think, in terms of quality, a second chance, but it's a chance to kind of integrate the youth and start again and see what they can do in the next couple of tournaments. So it'll be interesting to see how they get on. France, obviously, Mbappe's now been made captain of France. So this is his kind of first tournament leading France. And he had an interview saying that he basically wants to do everything that he can to win it. And obviously France have had a bit of heartbreak in recent times in Euros, not the last one. Obviously they went up to Switzerland, but the one before that, they were the host nation and they couldn't quite get it over the line, just like England were the host nation, couldn't quite get it over the line. So it's interesting to see how they get on it. And one team for me as well, Portugal, we spoke about on the last pod, how they've got a really strong squad on paper, but Portugal, you just don't know how they're going to actually perform on the pitch, because we've had this a few times now in tournaments where they've had a really, really good squad and they've not really set the world alight, in my opinion. So it'll be really interesting to see how they kind of get on. So for me, it's kind of the games with the big hitters to see how they get on. And it's always good to watch, because if one of your big hitters, like your Belgium, your Portugal, your France, doesn't get a result in game one, then it adds kind of a real bit of jeopardy and a bit of stress to their second and third games. And then when players are playing under that stress, then you see how they react. And then you're kind of getting into the realms of possibilities of a bit of an upset early doors. So yeah, I think those are the ones that I'm looking forward to the most.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of good games. These days are going to be must-watch TV for sure. Ben, what players are you looking forward to? You mentioned João Neves in the other preview pod for Portugal potentially. Nigel mentioned him as well in certain terms of somebody who might not get a big move because of his release clause and potentially if he has a couple of big performances, how that might affect him staying, right? But what players out of these matches, besides the names that we all know, right? Like obviously we're looking for Mbappe. Obviously we're looking for Ronaldo and Bernardo Silva and Fernandez from Man U. Who are you looking for that maybe we haven't heard of?
Yes, there's a few I was looking at where there's some like opportunities in terms of that might be available in the summer. If they have a good Euros, then there's going to be more teams that are going to be looking at them. So for Austria, there's Kevin Danso, who plays for Lens at the moment. He was at Southampton randomly, didn't have a very good time there, but since has really built his career in France, and he's been a key part to that team. So he's at the moment, the interesting thing, although he's one of their best players and he's so consistent, they actually need to sell some of their key players because they're having not the best financial situation and obviously qualified for the Champions League and they're not in it anymore. So, so he could be a good opportunity there. For France, Youssouf Fofana, someone we've spoken about a lot. The only difficulty with him is how much is he actually going to play because they've got so many good midfielders. But Didier Deschamps does seem to like playing him quite a bit, and he normally picks him in the team. So he's someone that the Monaco president has come out and said that he's available, that they're going to sell him. So, and he's weirdly only about 20 million because he's only got 1 year left in his contract. So there are two opportunities there where you could, if they have a good Euros, there's a lot of teams that are going to be, you can certainly have a good 5-10 teams to choose from. A bit of a random name for Ukraine. There's some interesting players for them. Defensive midfielder called Volodymyr Brazko, I want to say. I think that's how you pronounce it. Defensive midfielder, very combative. He's kind of like your Rice type defensive midfielder. Still playing out in Ukraine, and he's been getting a lot of attention for his performances there and for the national team as well. So it'd be interesting to see if anyone picks him up. I think Girona looked at him previously, and obviously they've got a couple of Ukrainian players at the moment. So it'd be interesting to see if they go in for him as well. And then from the Portugal point of view, I'm really interested. I don't think either of them will move, but Vitinha and Rafael Leao, both two players I really liked when they're in Portugal, and even more so more recently because they've just developed so much more. And Leao, for me, is one of those that if he went to a different team or if he had a different setup at the team that he's at, he could just reach a whole other level. He's got world-class ability. And for Portugal, it's interesting because they're going to have a lot more of the ball than Milan do, and he's going to have better players around him. So if he is, the interesting thing is to see whether he rises to that level or not, you know. And then the other thing was, the other one I mentioned was Vitinha. So since he's been at PSG, he's been arguably one of the best midfielders. Well, definitely in France, but this season he's been one of the better, left centre midfielders. Just got the perfect blend of being able to influence the game from all over the pitch, create from everywhere, and got that aggression off the ball as well. So I think he's one of those players. If he plays regularly. And then you've also got, I'm trying to think, Neves, Bernardo Silva, Bruno Fernandes, João Paulinho. There's some really good players there that their midfield might be quite dangerous. So yeah.
Thanks, Ben. Yeah, it's going to be a really fun set of games these 2 days. The England game is on Sunday, but I'm almost more excited for this set of games as well. Nigel, with this set of games, what narratives do you think are going to be kind of floating around for this match day, this part of the match day?
I can't believe that you've just said that you're more excited for these games. Anyway, I think the big narrative is going to be Kylian Mbappe. You've got your move to Real Madrid now. Come on this stage and show us what you've got. I don't actually think that's the greatest team to be doing it against, which is Austria, which are going to be organised. They're a good team. They're well coached. Big problem for France, especially if Didier Deschamps. Does Didier Deschamps actually watch Premier League football, or does?
No, he doesn't, because he's never been to England. He's never watched a game in England.
Does William Saliba turn up at these French squads and Didier Deschamps turn around to his coach and to his assistant and go, "Who is this man? Where has he come from?" And they say, "Oh, it's William Saliba. I didn't pick him." No, we picked him because you've never been to watch him. And he watched him train and goes, "Oh, he's very good, isn't he? But I'll play him instead." I mean, it's crazy. And I actually think I said it. I said it in the preview pod. Austria, France, that could be dangerous, big danger for France. Even though I've got them as my favourites, that could be a deal. But the narrative for me got to be around Cristiano Ronaldo's last dance, and can he win a second Euros? Has he still got it? He's banged in all these goals playing for Al Nassr in Saudi Arabia against amateurs and a few speckled stars. Can he do it when it matters? Czech Republic, another decent side. Oh, I can't call them Czech, but Czechia now. Another decent side. They've got some good players. I don't think they're not the Czech team of old, which was littered with unbelievable players, but just never got it off the ground in a big tournament. They used to like win 10 out of 10 in qualifying and then get to the main tournament and just capitulate. But I think the Ronaldo thing is the big one. I think that's the Ronaldo thing on Tuesday, and Mbappe on the Monday. But the one what sits in between that, Belgium. They've had this fantastic.
That's what I was going to say.
They've had this fantastic team for all this time, done nothing with it, and that team is now getting old. In the World Cup, they were falling out with each other. Is this going to be Kevin De Bruyne's last dance? I mean, he might not even be in the Premier League next year. He might be playing in Saudi. Belgium, you don't know which way they're going to go. Are they going to be unbelievable, or are they going to be dreadful? And they can be both. When we saw them play against England, they were brilliant. So yeah, be interesting. But yeah, everything for me is around Mbappe and Ronaldo in these two games. But let's not overlook the other three and little bits around it, especially Romania, Ukraine. With the war still going on, I'm sure that there will be a lot of flags and a lot of stuff, and I'm sure we'll see Zinchenko with his captain's armband on, trying to lead out his fellow countrymen. So yeah, be good. But I'm in France. I keep telling you, I'm in France this week. So that 9 o'clock game in the evening, that's going to be rowdy. That's going to be rowdy in Le Touquet in northern France. So yeah, be good.
Yeah, I think the Belgium shot was good. I think that's it's going to be an interesting, and again, like we're talking about with the Scotland, it's about that chemistry, that team chemistry, and can you get those players to gel for 4 weeks? That's all you need is a month, and if we're vibing, then we've got a chance to make some noise. And that the Romania Ukraine game, if there's a winner in that game, they could make it to the knockouts. You know what I mean? Off of the back of one win, whether that's second or third place, right? So these games that might not be like super exciting or have all the star power, are going to be very important in the in how the tournament shakes out. Dabo, something that you mentioned in the chat was about VAR and how they have the kind of rugby style VAR and explanations getting rolled out for this tournament. How do you think that's gonna affect the games as they go, but also how these decisions are talked about?
Yeah, I think it's a big step forward because at the end of the day, one thing that we've been calling out for is transparency in VAR. Because the problem is whether decision is right or not, you just want to know what the thought process is from getting from A to B. And I think the problem that a lot of people have with some of these decisions that you could argue are questionable, because there has been a lot in the last couple of years of during football with VAR, is purely the fact of what's going on, how's that decision being made, what rules are they using. So the fact that now, once the VAR decision has been finalised, apparently they're going to show it on the big screen in the stadium and just have basically a couple of sentence explanation saying this is why this outcome has been achieved. And I think just the fact that whether it's a right or wrong decision in the eyes of the audience, at least you've got an explanation. And then at least if you think that the decision is still wrong, you've got something to actually base it off and have a discussion point to have. So you've actually got a starting point to then improve that process in the future. So I think that if it's utilised correctly, it can be a really big step forward for VAR, because I think obviously when you look at the Premier League, for example, I know that they voted to keep VAR and it was only Wolves that brought the motion forward, and they're the only ones that voted to scrap it. But there's obviously some sort of thought process there already in the Premier League because of how it's being used. So if this system works, I know that we've now taken on the automated offside rule in the Premier League next season. And if this works, hopefully this can be utilised in the top leagues for the top players and inside stadiums, and people at home will have more clarity on why things are happening. So I think this is a fairly big shift in how VAR is being used, and hopefully it works out positively.
Yeah, I think every tournament you kind of have something that happens like this, right? With Qatar, we had the extended, the actually real stoppage time, right? So that was what got brought in for that tournament, and then that got brought into the Premier League this season. This tournament, Euro 2024, we have the semi-automated offside, right? So you have this, it's not lines and which I think that the lines are actually drawn correctly when they're drawn, but the semi-automated aspect of it makes it so that it's cut and dry and there's no, you can't argue against it, right? You can't say that they did it wrong. It's computer technology that the person either is or isn't offside. You can argue about whether his kneecap should be judged offside, but if whatever your measure of distance is, there's always going to be some argument about whether it should be adjusted, right? So the margin of distance is what it is. Semi-automated, we get that right away. The part that I think is really interesting is that they're going to show it in the stadiums, because as the viewer at home, I know what happens I see 7 replays, right? Because I'm based in the U.S. I see 7 replays. I see the announcers who have the VAR audio are often talking about what's happening in the VAR and what they're checking and walking us through the process. We don't hear it exactly, right? But the folks in the stadium have no idea what's happening. They have no replays. They're blind and they're just sitting there waiting while the purple screen is up saying VAR. So I think that aspect of things and the fans in the seats who are paying for that experience, right, to see how it'll react to being able to see the VAR process, have it more open, and hopefully get some sort of explanation of at least what conclusion that they've come to. Because like you said, it's about that transparency and whether the call is right or wrong, because some of these are judgment calls, right? We could all look at the same foul and some of us will say it's a yellow and some will say it's a red, right? That's the nature of how the sport works. But at least getting that explanation and saying, okay, well, I can see why they saw it that way, right? So I think that's going to be really fascinating aspect of the tournament. And yeah, we'll be here. Join us again after the first group of match days. We're going to do a roundup. We'll do a roundup after match day 1. So we'll talk about the narratives that actually came out of these games, the results, who scored, what those games look like, the surprises, all that stuff. Join us after the first match day. We'll have another podcast, and join us in the Discord. Follow us on X at WeAllFollowPod, And we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for coming on, boys. Thanks again, Nigel, Ben, and Dabo. And we'll talk to you guys soon.